Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Kramer. Our guest today is Mercer. How's that? Good, right?
That's perfect. I love that.
Okay. You guys are going to love Chris Mercer because he is so fun. And we're gonna talk about, we're gonna get a little bit technical today, aren't we, Chris? Mercer.
Do our best to make numbers something that people think are actually fun because they're going to know what to do with them. That's what we should do. That should be our mission in life for this podcast episode. Making numbers normal for the rest of us.
Okay. So, this podcast is about normalizing our sort of I'm going to use a disclaimer, naughty language, right? Normalizing our mental fuckery. Everybody's got it. We're all dealing with it. We're all working through it. Sometimes it's a little messy because our business journey triggers a lot of the stuff that we've got to work through. When we start to normalize it a little bit, then it's not so taboo. It's not so shameful. And then it makes tackling it and dealing with it and working through it that much easier.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
You're helping people with stuff that can be a little uncomfortable for entrepreneurs as well. Now, I'm going to be honest, I've got all my analytics stuff set up. I don't always like to look at it.
Yeah,
but
exactly. You're the rule. It's 100% right. Yeah.
Let's talk about why, though. I mean, why are you in business? There's a reason for it, right? I mean, you're doing this because it's important.
Yeah, well, also our claim to fame. So our company's called measurementmarketing.io, and we have multiple levels from the do-it-yourself level stuff all the way up through done for you. But we basically, our job is to help marketers, marketing teams, and agencies essentially figure out how to measure their marketing, right? There's a ton of free tools that are out there. Google makes most of them that are amazing, that can tell us what's happening on our sites, what's working and what's not, specifically when it comes to our marketing. But if we don't know, to your point, if we don't know how to read all that, if we don't know what all of that means, then we can't take any actions. And that's what happens with a lot of people. I was the exact same way. I was exactly where you were, which is like you sort of turn on these tools thinking that, well, that's what I need to do. Now I go use the tool. And that's a horrible mistake, but it's so easy to make because it's almost like everybody wants you to make it. They just say, oh yeah, put this on your page, on your site, and then you can start using this tool and it'll tell you magic stuff. But it never happens. And yet everyone just sort of recycles that same advice. So we broke the mold way back when by helping people understand how to use these tools in a way that a normal person understands how to use tools. And by what I mean by that is somebody who doesn't even consider themselves a numbers person. Like, you don't have to be a numbers person in order to understand measurement. It's kind of one of my favorite parts about it.
So you mentioned the advertisers, the marketers, they need all the data, right? And you'll hear them professing the importance of knowing, the data.
Data driven. Everyone wants to be data driven now. Yeah, exactly right.
But there's also a little bit of conflict when it comes to the entrepreneur who is saying, okay, well, whatever it is, Google ads or Facebook ads or whatever they're doing, right?
Like Google Analytics, right? Exactly. Wicked reports. Yeah.
There's this conflict that a lot of business owners have with spending the money without seeing the results. And, that's where a lot of these metrics are so incredibly important. So I want to talk about it from your perspective as the expert, speaking to our entrepreneurs who are listening. And some of them they're in the marketing realm, and so they get it, right? But some of them are not. And I really do want to help empower our business owners who they hear this stuff. They know it's important, but they don't really get why it's important.
Yeah. Let's take a step back. So I think a lot of this is with how we frame things, right? It's the reframing of things that helps us to unlock our powers. And with measurement, it's the same way. You'll notice I speak in terms of measurement And I typically don't use the word data. You won't hear me say analytics very often as a word. I never say accuracy. We always call accuracy the A word here because it doesn't exist. But measurement is important. And so why is measurement important? Kind of to your original question there. Why is measurement important? So this is how we think about it. You and I are having a conversation right now. I'm going to adjust what I say based upon what you say and vice versa, right? So it's just really, what is that? That's just listening and responding. I'm listening to what you say. I'm going to adjust what I say based upon that. You vice versa, right? The whole idea is we're trying to keep the conversation going in a direction that we both like. Well, digitally, that's happening right now with everyone's websites, right? There are people that are on your website right now. There are people who are on the entrepreneur that's listening to this episode. Somebody's on their website right now. And that website is having a conversation with the user. And you know this because sometimes you'll even hear it. Like you'll read somebody's website and you kind of hear that voice inside your head as you narrate their website to yourself. But there is a conversation that's going on. The problem is, well, how do we listen to their side of the conversation? Because it's a website. The website can't really listen and then respond back like a human could, right? Like this whole conversation, listening, responding thing makes total sense in the offline world because that's just how human behavior is. We naturally do that. Digitally, for some reason, we just keep throwing out the rules. Like it's different digitally. It's not different digitally. We're still humans interacting in a digital world. Therefore, human behavior is going to come into play there. So there is a conversation happening between the website this time and the user of that website. But how do we, as entrepreneurs, understand what their side of the conversation is? Well, that's what measurement is for. Because if you can measure for their side of the conversation, then you can respond by changing the marketing. So for example, right, the entrepreneur, no matter who the entrepreneur is, the second you go on Facebook to promote your business, you're a marketer. Welcome to the club, right? You are marketing. And marketing is a role every business has. So when we're looking at it from the marketing activities perspective, we want to adjust what our side of the conversation is to keep the conversation going in the direction we want it to go. So if we think about Facebook, something simple like a Facebook group, maybe I've got a group with a bunch of people in it, and I want to try to figure out, like, I'm just trying to help them, whether it's law of attraction thinking or hypnosis or whatever the thing is that they're working on. They've built this group in Facebook. Now they've created their website. Maybe they didn't have a website before. Now they're creating it so they can have their own personal brand. They want everybody to come over and join their email list. So they start promoting that in the Facebook group. And then some emails show up. And that's great because we have more emails showing up on our email list. But were they from the Facebook group? Was it because I just happened to see it show up in search results when I was Googling for you? Was it because maybe you shared it because you know me and promoted that site instead, just as a friend, right? How did I get those emails there? Because if I think, well, it has to be the Facebook group, then I might triple down doing Facebook group stuff. And that may not have been at all. It may have been because something got picked up in the search results and my blog's starting to rank for something, but I didn't know they were coming from search. Right. And that's why it's important to understand how our marketing is working through measurement, right? Because we want to understand sort of their side of the conversation. If the conversation they're having is, listen, you can promote all you want in Facebook, but I'm sticking in Facebook and I'm not coming over to join your list. It's a very different conversation than, oh yeah, I'm definitely searching. I have a problem when I'm in Google search and I'm searching for an issue and your blog post helped me. And therefore I signed up for your free toolkit or whatever the thing was that you were giving away to get the list. So that's the idea, right? We need to use measurement to be able to understand which of these things is working so we can take the actions that are more likely to give us the result that we're looking for, right?
That
Again,
was
to keep the
such a
conversation going.
great way of explaining it.
It helps to reframe for sure. It helps to reframe for sure. I'm going to give you one more because I think this will help you in particular, because you are where I think 98% of the people are with these tools like Google Analytics, right? It's like a free tool and you put it on your site and it could be a plugin, could be if they're starting out like a Shopify store, they put a little, app on it. It just starts measuring. So let's think about this in the offline world. And I encourage everybody, think about how you do this in the offline world. That's how you do it on the digital world too. Because again, for some reason, people just make up the rules like they're totally different in the digital world. They are not. They're always the same. If I gave you the book, let's say the book, Go to Action of the Three Bears, and I ask you to read that kid's book to me, you could probably do a pretty good job, right? I say, great, give me back the book, take the book back. I rip out those pieces and I rip those pieces into even smaller pieces, right? So it's a bunch of chopped up pieces now. I put all those pieces between the cover and I hand that book back to you. Now, could you read me the story?
Highly unlikely.
The answer is absolutely you could. Absolutely you could, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Because
So if I,
I did
so
not
you're going to say
change.
I have to put it back together?
I did not change your ability to read, right? And this is a problem with the framing of the I'm not a numbers person thought happens because again, this is like 1 + 1 = 2. Do you know that? Yeah, then it's all you need to know. It's all you need to know. You know basic math, you're golden. You just need to know that you're officially a numbers person, right? There with Google Analytics, right? What's happening is it comes in as ripped up pieces of data because you haven't set up that tool because no one's out there screaming at the mountaintop, please set up the tool before you start to use it. What most people say is just throw this code on your site and then go use it. But that is the mistake. It hasn't been properly set up. And going back to that story example, you're exactly right. You could read me that story. It would take you a lot longer, right? And now if we think about that, okay, you have to dump out the pieces of paper. Some of them are going to fall behind the couch. Some of them are going to get blown off by the fan on the kitchen table. So you might have to just make up some parts of the story that you can't find. And now it starts to feel a lot like working with a tool like Google Analytics, because you're like, that's kind of what it's like. One report says this, but then Facebook says this other thing. And then something doesn't seem to make sense over here. And then you're like, whatever, it feels like the Matrix, I'm out. I'll come back in a couple of years and try to figure it out when I regroup. That's what happens. And that's what happened to us too. This is how I know this. This is absolutely going to happen if you keep using that system. But when you go, listen, I now know, because a lot of times the problem is just they're unaware. No one realizes you have to set up the tool. When you tell the tool, this is how I want you to stitch these pieces of data together, right? These pieces of paper. This is how I want you to assemble these so that all the chapter 1s show up here and all the chapter 2s show up here and all the chapter 3s show up here. Then when you go into that platform, right, when it's set up properly, it very much does tell you a natural story of which traffic sources are causing results. And you can say, well, hey, my CPC traffic, the Facebook paid traffic, the stuff I'm boosting posts on, that's actually causing emails. The social group stuff, the stuff I'm not boosting, but I'm just promoting in the group, they're not signing up for emails. But wow, look at that. Google organic search. There's a lot of people searching for stuff. And these blog posts are actually what's causing people to join my list. Now, all of a sudden, you start to get insights, again, into that conversation that the website's having with the users. And now you can look at that and say, do I like this? If so, let's go scale. If I like the fact organic search is working, the action is going to be get more blog posts, right? If I like the way that Facebook paid traffic is working, add more to the budget and slowly sort of ramp that up and make sure it stays the same. If I like how the social group is working, keep doing that. If I don't like how the social group is working, change it. But at least I know that it's not working, so I know to change it, as opposed to just kind of uncomfortably guessing all the time. And I think Dan Kennedy coined this term, random acts of marketing. I see a lot of people do that. They're just trying to random things and see what sticks, kind of thing. And with measurement, we don't have to do that. If we understand how to use the tools properly, the tools will tell us what actions we should be taking.
There are people listening right now who are like, oh my goodness, you mean to tell me that I wouldn't just have to guess anymore?
Yeah.
But they're also probably the same people who are saying, I do not want to have to try to figure out how to set up that tool.
Yep.
So then what's the solution?
It's a great question. The answer is, it depends, because obviously some companies will come to us. We have a whole service called the Dedicated Measurement Management Service, where we are the outsourced measurement department, and then we take over their measurement, run it from there, right? So it's when you have a really high budget, like money solves all problems. But I think in most entrepreneurial endeavors, like that's not the first thing. You're not looking to go spend money. It's the opposite, right? You're like, how do I make sure I've got measurement in place and can know what's going on? It may not be to the perfect level that Mercer and the team over at measurementmarketing.io can do, but it's good enough to help me move forward, right? And I think that's very important. You have to take care of the boulders first, and what we call the cave style setup, right? Which is like a real, like, I'm not quite sure what's working, what's not. I just need something basic to at least give me something to climb this first hill, essentially, right? To see, kind of take the initial first actions. And then as we learn, we're going to build measurement muscle. As you build measurement muscle, you start learning the basics of the tools. It gets easier each time, right? And it's sort of naturally how things grow. Very similar to anybody who was like, I'll never learn how to do a site. And then you start learning WordPress. And then you're like, oh, okay, this isn't that bad. And all of a sudden you start picking up HTML eventually. And then you understand what a plugin is. And all of a sudden now you're pretty much really comfortable with WordPress, right? It sort of builds upon itself and rinses, repeats, and you learn a couple new things as you go. It's kind of the same thing with measurement and these tools. Now, that said, let's talk about the tools real fast, because there are a lot of them. And that's the problem. Right? Just like there's so many different ways to build a website, there's so many different ways to measure a website. Now, there's lots of free tools like Google Analytics and things like that. I love Google Analytics. I think you should have it on there. There's a new one that's called Google Analytics 4. So at this point, that is the new Google Analytics that's out that can be used. So I would definitely use that because it can see everything. It can see your email traffic. It can see organic from search engines. It can see your paid traffic and the social media traffic that you're doing and everything else in between, right? It can see all of that, which is why it's nice. But there's another one that's really cool, completely free, called Microsoft Clarity, which is amazing. You can go to clarity.microsoft.com, right? Just Google for it, Microsoft Clarity, completely free tool. And this is one of those tools where they're pretty rare, but this one nails it. They give you a piece of code, you put the piece of code on your site, and they did an incredible job. In fact, anybody just starting out with this is the tool I would start with, Microsoft Clarity. Because you put this piece of code on your site, just like Google Analytics, everything starts working in the background. And it's Microsoft's version of analytics. But the way they did it, they focused on pictures. So they focused on tools like Crazy Egg, Hotjar, Lucky Orange used to be one, Mouseflow's one, where you have like heat maps and scroll maps, and you can kind of see where people are clicking on your site. You can even watch recordings of what the pages are. So if you're not getting opt-ins, you can watch the recordings of the opt-in page and see kind of what they're doing. Maybe they're trying to click on a button and it's not working, right? They click on the button and they click it again and again and again. Microsoft Clarity, this is why I love them. They did such an incredible job, so much better than Google ever has. Microsoft named these things, and they named them like a human speaks, which I love. One section is called dead clicks. Guess where that goes? Things that go to dead links, right? That 404. The other one is literally called rage clicks. And it says, hey, 2% of your site are rage clicks. Would you like to watch the videos where people are rage clicking? You're like, yes, I would. They're just sitting there. They're all GDPR compliant. Everything's anonymized, and it's working all in the background. Whereas these other tools, some of these that we pay for, you have to go tell the tool, hey, I want a recording of this page. Make sure you listen here. Microsoft's got it all. Because they're huge. So they're just recording everything in the background. That way, when you remember, you're like, oh yeah, I want to go see what's going on with my particular offer page. Maybe somebody's pitching a coaching package or something. What's going on, or the schedule a call, right? Page, things like that are in a lot of our user journeys now. Microsoft Clarity, you can see that and see what's going on. And because they have the AI with ChatGPT, they have now integrated that. So you don't even have to watch the recordings. You can click a little button that says, tell me the story here. And it'll literally do the little ChatGPT version. It'll say, well, a user signed up. They came in from after searching for this phrase on Google search. When they came into the page, they decided to look around here. And it seems like they had questions around this part. Then they did this, and it goes through until they finally clicked and go into the cart page. But it'll tell you a story of what's going on. And so now you literally have their side of the conversation in words. And that's why I love that tool, because it is so easy to use. You just put the code on the pages, just put them on all your pages. It doesn't slow down your site. It's pretty good. So you put the code on your pages, then you just go into it and it'll email you each week and give you a little dashboard. Here's how many rage clicks or dead clicks, or here's something we're noticing. You can then click into it. Those are all in your dashboard. And then you just click and watch the recordings. Or if you don't want to watch them, hit those little chat bubbles, and ChatGPT starts telling you what's going on. And now you can sort of get a better understanding of, wow, it seems like a lot of people are really, getting confused by this thing. They're not but you'll see it. It'll give you that insight, and that leads to action. If you get information from your measurement system that you can't take action on, what's the point? It's just trivia, right? We don't want trivia. We want actions, because none of us have time to sit and look at numbers all day long. Like, I'm numbers tolerant, but I don't want to sit and look at a spreadsheet all day long. Right now, you should just look at your number and go back to work. And Microsoft Clarity is a really cool tool for that. So if you're just starting out, because it is so what they call qualitative, to use a technical term, it just means pictures, screen, everything just makes sense intuitively with that platform. I think it's a really good gateway for people to get started on. Then you move into something that's a little geekier, like Google Analytics 4, which is the data tables and everything else. And you'll learn how to use those too, because that really is the same report over and over again. You just got to learn how to read it. But you can find that training when you're ready. Microsoft Clarity is where I would start.
Such a good tip. And I really like that you did, again, sort of weave in the why. So you dropped a lot of nuggets in there. It takes this old sort of icky thing for some of us who are like, I don't, this means nothing to me. I don't care, right?
Yep.
I want to know that things are working, but I just see stuff that really doesn't help me very much. Why don't I have that? I should have that. I should be doing that. That really legitimately would help me. Because a lot of us, you hear, it's almost cliche, right? You hear these things about how once you're in your business, you kind of just start to forget what it's like to be the customer or the client.
Yes.
Your jargon is so familiar to you. You get,
it's like that curse of knowledge, right?
Yeah,
where you
exactly.
start using your own. Yeah.
And so then you start to wonder, well, what are people actually thinking?
Yeah.
And what are people actually doing? And is that actually an effective piece of my overall marketing strategy? Or do people just, they're not into it? It does nothing for my business. Yeah. So now you're bringing it back down to this sort of practical level where it's like, it makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
Not only why this is important, but
yeah, exactly. It's like it comes down to the belief structure, right? And I'm a real big believer in useful beliefs. Like if beliefs aren't useful in my world, I will trash them. I immediately get rid of them and replace them with useful beliefs, something that allows me to do something with it. And a lot in the beginning when you're first learning this stuff, so much of this is mindset shift. You cannot use the same rules of I'm not a numbers person. Now let me go learn numbers. You've already lost. You're not a numbers person. Your identity is that. Therefore, you will never learn numbers. But if you're not a numbers person, I would love to get your driver's license rescinded because you have no idea how to drive a car. Well, yeah, I do. I do it all the time. You can't possibly. You're not a numbers person. Well, yeah, well, let me ask you a question. When you're doing your dashboard, look at your speedometer. How do you know if to hit the gas or hit the brake? Well, I'm going to take how fast I'm going. I know what the speed limit is, and then so you are a numbers person. You do know what to do with numbers. The problem is you have complicated reports. That's all. You're a numbers person. There's just too many freaking numbers. You don't have to look at them all, right? Just simplify them. Like we have a lot of people that come to us. I'm trying to figure out how to analyze my reports. Wrong question. Why are your reports so complicated? You have to analyze them. Make them so they're like your dashboard, like your car dashboard. You know exactly what to do. When you see that number, how fast you're going, you automatically know if you hit the gas or hit the brake. You almost can't help but do that subconsciously now. You're so good at it. So we're all numbers people. It's a matter of which numbers do we have access to and thinking about how to build it so that we keep it as simple as possible. Like I said, cool tools like Microsoft Clarity will help a lot with that. And then eventually you start layering in different skills of measurement, but you always keep it simple. I think that's a big a tendency of people to overcomplicate. I think complicating things is really easy. That's not where the skill is. The skill is in keeping things simple. And just sort of bringing it back down to like, okay, if I can drive a car and use my car dashboard to see how fast I'm going, if I hit the brake or hit the gas, that is literally using numbers to take an action. Therefore, I know how to do that. No more talk about how I don't know how to do that because you clearly do. Now it's how to apply that over here. That's a different question, but it's a more useful question, right? Because now I have a different belief. Now it's like, okay, I am a numbers person at a very low level. That's fine. Now let's make you work with different numbers in different ways, but at least you know you can do it. And that's the first thing, that mindset battle.
Well, I'm going to segue off of that and let's shift gears, pun intended, on your your metaphor there.
I see what you did there.
And we're going to talk about belief, but I want to speak to you. Mm-hmm. So, as an entrepreneur, you didn't just wake up one day and knock it out of the park in terms of your success. You probably didn't have all the right beliefs. You mentioned, yeah, when a belief doesn't work for me, I just get rid of that one.
Yep.
That I'm sure was a learned skill based on necessity.
Yes.
Can you share with us perhaps one of your mindset challenges that you've had to shift, change, overcome in order to get to where you are today?
Great question. The I think the biggest shift, there's been a bunch of them. I'm trying to think about the biggest because I have literally been noting this stuff down when I'm like, so we have what we call heads up, heads down thinking now in our organization because we had too much heads down, which is people were just doing the work, doing the work, doing the work, doing the work, doing the work. And they weren't even thinking about why anymore. They're just doing what they did today because that's what they did yesterday. But people forgot to improve the system, right? They took the system they inherited and they just sort of rinse and repeat, but they never looked for an opportunity for feedback. How do we improve the system, right? Because if you don't do that, your systems are going to break down. At a certain point, they're just not going to be competitive anymore because they're not evolving, quite literally, right? In that case. So that was one. We added a bunch more like, okay, you have to do heads down, but you also occasionally have to poke your head up and be like, oh, are we even going the right direction? It's like, yes, we are. Okay, cool. Now let's go back down and paddle, and then you come back up. Are we still going the right direction? Is that, okay, I know we wanted to go this direction. Is this still the direction we want to go? And we start asking those questions, right? So I think that was one of them for me, for sure. A big one in the beginning was, I'll give you two. One was when I was just a sort of like that independent solopreneur, and I was just starting to bring in team members to remember, because I dramatically underestimated this in the beginning. Remember that when you're hiring that first person, right? Because keep in mind, the way they're telling you is, oh, just go start to outsourcing. And then, oh, there's a team that everyone's doing all the stuff you don't want to do. And it's amazing. Well, no, it's not in the beginning. It can be, but it's not in the beginning, because when you hire that first person, you immediately hire their boss, and that's you. So now you have to be a manager. You just gave yourself another role and you're already too busy. So now you've got to bring on that person, be their boss, get all the stuff you were doing. And guess what? They're going to do it worse than you do in the beginning. So you have to give yourself that time to train them up and then let them fly the nest and become their own person in the organization. And I underestimated in the beginning how long that took. So now the mindset is, okay, when we're bringing in somebody new, we know we're giving them a 13-week ramp up. Here's the plan. Here's how it's going to go. We dedicate the manager, whoever the manager is now, comes down and make sure that they've got time where they can allow that to happen because they know they're going to take the productivity hit for a period of time, right? And then ramp it up. So that was one that we did there. And so I think there's been a bunch of them, and I think that's the other thing is just being flexible with the market changes too fast, the competition changes too fast, technology changes too fast, and I can tell you from experience, it's going to get faster. All of those things are going to change even faster. Look how fast AI took over, the conversation of what's been going on. It's barely out a year. So it's like that sort of stuff encourages me to have, I guess, very strong beliefs, incredibly loosely held, right? So I will act as if I believe this thing until it no longer makes sense to believe this thing. Then I'll let it go. So for example, if I was like, well, Facebook paid ads work. Okay, I'm going to do Facebook paid ads, and I'm going to keep doing Facebook and scale. What about this new thing called TikTok? Nope, Facebook paid ads are my thing. Scale. Well, then Facebook stops because they changed an algorithm or tweak something. Well, now I don't have any more TikTok. And I'm not saying you should start 45 things at once, but you at least should consider these things. And if you're just discounting things without sort of a reason why you're discounting, if I believe that Facebook is the only way to do things, that could be a useful belief as long as Facebook is working. But the second it doesn't, and I believe Facebook is the only way to do things, now I've got a dead company, right? Because my belief system is going to cause the result of, well, if Facebook's the only way to do things and Facebook doesn't work, I'm stuck, right? So now it's okay, well, let's go someplace else. Let's figure something else out. And I think that flexibility is really important in an entrepreneur.
So true. Okay, we are at the end of our time together. It has been so high energy. You held true to your promise that you were going to make measurements, make the numbers, all of those dirty words, analytics and stuff that everybody's like, oh, you're going to make it more fun, more accessible, and you did. How can our listeners connect with you?
So obviously our company name is measurementmarketing.io. So anybody can go there and learn more about us. We actually do a free level of our membership, which I encourage anybody, if they're interested, to learn it. We give you an entire measurement framework, we call it, a strategy for how to get measurement in your organization. However, it doesn't matter the tools, just measurement in general, how to think about it. And it's a substantial course. It's a little over 3 hours. But it is all about mindset of measurement, how to do it. You only go through it once, and now you think differently. And I think that's half the battle. So anybody that's interested in that, they can just go to measurementmarketing.io/mind, because of course we're on the Mind of Business Success podcast. So again, measurementmarketing.io/mind to get that.
Awesome. This has been a fun conversation. I actually am much more sold on the value of my measurements. So thank you for that. And I have
one person at a time. I love it.
I have a feeling quite a few people listening are in the same boat as me. They're like, damn, if somebody would have explained this to me like this way in the beginning, I would probably be a lot further along and actually taking all of that information and help you, it would be helping me instead of just being like, oh, there's some more information.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think another thing as entrepreneurs is, and I absolutely have this problem still to this day. It's just harder to get rid of it sometimes, but you hit that dead end in the maze and our instinct is to, okay, how do we get through the dead end? And we will do everything we possibly can to break through that wall, when in reality, what we should do is back up 7 steps and make a left instead of a right. And then then we're out of the maze, right? And it's so hard for an entrepreneur to have that state of awareness, be like, oh, to your point, if I had learned it like this 20 steps ago, I would actually be in a completely different spot right now. That is absolutely true. So be willing to back up and go, okay, I'm going to relearn it like this. Now you get presented with a whole other set of solutions that are available to you, precisely because you're willing to back up and then make a left instead of a right. So I think that is huge. And I'm glad that you said that yourself, because that's what triggered me to remember that. That's such an, not just for measurement, but for entrepreneurial journeys all across the world.
So good. So good. Thank you so much for being with us today. I always want to call you Chris, but just so everybody knows, he goes by Mercer.
I do. There's always another Chris on the internet.
That's who he is. So with that being said, Mercer, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been super fun.
Thanks, Alicia. Appreciate you having me.
And thank you to all of our listeners. We're doing this for you. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.